7:51. There is a new book out about James Gandolfini, the real life of the man who made Tony Soprano, Dan Bischoff. Dan, you former resident of St. Louis, is that right?
Yeah. Hi, McGraw. Hi, Kelly. Yes, I lived there for a couple of years in the late 70s.
All right. Well,
right before I moved to New York.
All right. Well, once a St. Louisan, always a St. Louisan, I guess, right?
Yes.
The book about James Gandolfini, did you start the book after he died, or was this in planning before
actually,
he
I
passed
started
away?
the book. I started the book like 2 or 3 days after he died. I got the call from my agent and the publisher, and I was working at the Star Ledger is the largest newspaper in New Jersey. It's the paper that Tony Soprano picks up in his driveway every day, and always they're making references to the Star Ledger in that show. So my newspaper was really involved with promoting the show from the very beginning.
How much did his friends and family talk? He was a pretty shy and private gentleman, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. His family did not overtly cooperate, and a lot of his friends didn't either. But then again, I talked to everybody from his sixth grade girlfriend, his best friends in college and high school, to the directors of his last 2 movies, the one of which is still yet to come out, and found a lot of information about what he was like. I mean, that really is different from the perception that a lot of people. He used to go through revolving doors in hotels and see guys coming out in the other doorway, and their faces would go white because they'd think it was Tony Soprano coming in the door. He's a very different person than that.
Yeah, he from the little we know about him, the rumors were is that he was a really, really nice guy.
Oh, one of the greatest stories is the first big dispute they had with HBO about salaries. Once the show was a hit, 2 years in, the HBO was making a fortune off the show, and the big negotiation, a lot of tension on both sides. He gets a huge settlement, and he gives all the 16 regular actors $33,000 apiece from his end of the deal, and said, "Thanks for sticking with me."
Wow.
And, that can sound like, you could think of that like a gangster paying a croupier and $1,000 chips or something, but that's not the sense I got. I mean, these people are really loyal to James Gandolfini, and it's not because of his generosity. It's because of this sort of innocence that he had, they're very protective. They didn't want this guy to be hurt or injured by people, and he had a profound, like a lot of Italian men do, a profound dignity.
Yeah. Dan Bischoff, our guest. The book is James Gandolfini, The Real Life of the Man Who Made Tony Soprano. Is it true that the scenes were so violent and the character was so bad that it affected James Gandolfini to the point where they actually had to put off filming every once in a while?
Every once in a while. It wasn't that he was disturbed by doing it. He always thought that, let me say this. He's a great comic actor. And there was a sense in The Sopranos that was always sort of a comedy. But he did these terrible things. And to make those terrible things believable was very demanding of an actor. And as he became more successful, as he entered, basically the 1%, it became harder and harder to find that. And there were delays. I think most of the actors I spoke to who worked with him thought that was the price for getting this fantastic character, Tony Soprano, who was like an icon of television.
Yeah, I've heard Michael Imperioli say that they saw Sopranos as a comedy, and if you go back and look, it's funny in a sick, perverted kind of way. If that makes any sense.
David Chase called it The Simpsons with guns. I mean, it was a suburban dad who, is trying to teach his kids to do the right thing and to grow up in society the right way. And then at night he goes to a strip club and murders thugs. And at the time when 9/11 happens, the United States sort of is doing that, going around whacking thugs everywhere, and yet still trying to be the great, white hope of nations. I think there was a kind of way in which events made The Sopranos a much deeper and darker and more meaningful show as time went on.
It's a great
No.
point.
I think that happens with all television hits, but particularly with The Sopranos.
Dan, in your book, James Gandolfini almost did not become Tony Soprano, though, right? Did he stop? In
Oh
the
yeah,
middle
it
of
was
his
close. They
audition?
had several other actors. The HBO probably would have preferred a couple of the other actors who were more handsome and charming. And he himself didn't think he'd get the role. He thought it would go to George Clooney, except Italian. And he actually had, he had a hard time auditioning for roles. He often would go in to prep for an audition and then say, well, I know this other actor could probably do this better, or I'm not quite getting it, or his friends told me every movie deal he ever got, he tried to back out of because he thought he couldn't do it. And people would have to come, no, you're great. You're perfect for this role. You should do this.
The book is called James Gandolfini, Dan Bischoff, our guest. Dan, the thing that I go back and I watch Sopranos, and even during the first run, I was just amazed at the way James Gandolfini breathes. Right? I mean, he's heavy size. The breathing was part of the acting. Was that natural? Was that inserted? I mean, did you have any sense about that at all as you did the book?
Tony Sirico, the guy who played Paulie Walnuts on the show,
Right.
he said to me, I watched this guy like a hawk. That he'd get his line, and he'd maybe say the line, but maybe he'd pause just for a second before the line came out. He was taught the Meisner method of acting, which is that you don't think about what you're doing, you feel it. And it should just come out of you naturally. And it was one of the reasons he was so insecure was, he'd work so hard in the prep, and then the acting would just be done. It would be over, and he wouldn't even notice it while he was doing it, because that's what you're just, that's what you're trained to do. And I think it left him insecure. Well, I didn't even know I did it, and everybody else thought he was a genius, which he was.
I just want on the record, Dan, that is the worst Paulie impression I've ever heard. That was terrible. What was your favorite
With
Ted?
a name like Bischoff, I can't do these Italian.
There you go. Dan, what was your favorite Ted Drews when you were in town?
Oh, Ted Drews?
Yeah.
The custard?
Yeah.
I'm not sure I can name the thing. I used to go there all the time.
All right.
That and Telena's.
Mike Telania's at 3 in the morning. What's better
Yes.
than Mike Telania's pizza at 3 o'clock in the morning? Dan,
And Llewellyn's. Is Llewellyn's still there?
Llewellyn's is still around. Yeah, doing well.
Yeah,
Dan-
I loved it.
Dan,
Go ahead.
Yeah, we're short on time, Dan. We got to go. Dan Bischoff. The book is James Gandolfini, The Real Life of the Man Who Made Tony Soprano. St. Louis and Dan Bischoff. Dan, good luck with the book.
Thank you very much.
You got it. 9:57. Quick check.